talking and no moving until I say so. And every time you push back, that will be another week without phone privileges.
Dinner time, line structure, arm's length apart.
Dawn, take your hands out of your pockets. You need to ask my permission every time you scratch your nose or you burp. Do you got that?
Why don't we tell Amanda our 5 free phrases?
Thank you, sorry, excuse me, you're welcome, bless you.
Very good.
Are you ready to get growing with Kathy Holloway Hill, psychologist, author, talk show host?
And it might not be the right thing to do.
Exactly.
That should be an upgrade where you learn to communicate.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
As much as I've proved, I still have that urge to prove again.
If you want to talk about the love of Jesus, I'm all open for the conversation.
There is more that unites us.
Dr. Maya Angelou, how are you doing today?
My name is Kathy Holloway. I'm doing very well.
If you're overthinking, overreacting, over-scrutinizing, or overanalyzing, then train your mind to gain renewed optimistic wisdom. Grow with Kathy Holloway Hill.
Good evening, everyone. I am Kathy Holloway Hill, and welcome to the show. I am so excited to spend this time with you because we have a magnificent topic and an incredible guest. And before we speak to my guest, I just want to let you know that I saw her and I found her after watching a Lifetime movie entitled Cruel Instruction. And if you have not seen that movie, I recommend that you go find it on streaming, wherever it is, and watch it because it's a true story. And I have a young lady who actually lived a life very similar to what was in that show. Miss Cyndy Etler, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so honored to be here.
I am very honored that you are here with us today to enlighten our viewers and just let them know what is going on in our world, in our nation. It's unbelievable. And I'm going to let you go ahead and introduce yourself before we just jump into the conversation, because I have so much to say. I'm just bubbling over.
Okay, well, hi, y'all. I am Cyndy Etler. I am here to speak about my experience as a child in a residential treatment program for teenagers, which I'm sure we're going to get into. As an adult, I am a teen life coach and an author. I have a few young adult memoirs out about my experience in this program.
Well, thank you so much for that, because everything you're doing, and I know you're doing a lot because you are out there, and I am so proud of all the work that you're doing, Cyndy. So let's just talk about these treatment centers, as you called it. Okay. So we know that there are a lot of situations, parents, grandparents, everyone who has the authority or the guardianship or the jurisdiction or whatever, and you're raising someone or you're responsible for a child or a teen or whatever the case may be, please listen up. Please. Because right now we're dealing with in my opinion, because I'm a psychologist, but in my opinion, we're dealing with a severe mental health crisis in this country right now today. It's always been there, but I think it's much worse right now. So parents are looking for help. And I know you're looking for perhaps maybe a boarding school or a place to send your child or your teen. If the counselor at school says, well, their behavior needs to be modified, or maybe they're getting bad grades, they were getting good grades and their grades are starting to drop and they need help. And we have an idea. And they start pulling out these beautiful brochures of these boarding schools. that can help your teen in a great environment with all of these beautiful things like swimming pools and horseback riding, and we also do group therapy to make sure that they're being heard and seen and supported and loved and all of these things. Did I get it right, Cyndy?
You got the marketing right. You got
That's
it
how
right
they
the
get
way it's
you.
presented.
So with that said, that's how they get you, parents. Now I want you to hear from someone who was in this beautiful so-called place. What's it like, Cyndy?
Ooh, it is a festival of abuse is what it is. It's a place where parents bring their kid thinking the kid is going to get fixed. And I guess I should speak for the facility where I was. I won't say I know about everything going on everywhere, but what I experienced was.
Now, were you just in one or multiple?
I was in one program in multiple locations. So
Yeah.
they kept popping up like mushrooms to make more money. So when they opened one up closer to where I was from, I got moved to there. But what happens a lot today is, and I'll get back to describing my experience in these places, but there's sort of this racket set up where today, if a kid is in a residential treatment program, and that's a short-term thing, then there's a strong recommendation to the parent that, well, after this, they should really go to this second program. And so the kid is just kept for an extended amount of time in different programs, and somebody's getting paid, but the kid ain't getting fixed. So what my experience was getting dropped off, and I won't go into the details of what happened because it's a family program and you can find that mess in the book. But can
you just give us some a little bit, not deep in, but a little.
There was
do they violate you, female?
Yes. Physical, sexual, psychological, just abuse. And the weird thing is, it was at the hands of peers. The staff in the program I was at were teenagers who had gone through the program, so they were true believers. They were on fire about the program, and therefore they were sort of psyched to punish the newbie or to give what they got. Yeah, it's because when I'm just jumping into it here, but when you are trapped in a building, in a facility with no contact with your parents or the outside world, at first you're like in shock and you're like, yo, I'm gonna fight. And then when you fight,
wait, I hate to interrupt you.
No, it's crazy.
That's a key point. They cut off your communication with your parents and the outside world.
Oh, that's essential. That's the key component of these programs is you can't talk to your parents. And again, I'll say I'm speaking for where I was to be safe and fair, I guess, but you can't talk to your parents until you are properly brainwashed and reciting the party line, oh, this place is great. I really was a drug addict. Thank you for putting me here. Parents hear that, like, let me write another check. Let me write another check because my kid is getting what they need. But until you've been there for a while and they've been kicking your butt long enough that you're desperate and you're going to say anything, because the beatings won't stop until you start saying, yes, I belong here. I hope I'm making sense. This stuff is so crazy and hard to condense into a short nugget, but that's the way it works. They convince the parents your kid is bad. The only thing that's going to fix your kid is this. And the parents are kind of like, oh, phew, somebody can finally fix this issue, whatever the issue is. Kid is removed from contact from the family until they're willing to say, oh, yes, I was bad. This is what I need. Then they're allowed to talk to their parents in a supervised way, little tiny short tidbits. The parents are like, oh, it's working. Then the parents spend more money.
So how do they brainwash you? Do they give you some kind of drug to, just make you walk around like a zombie? You don't feel anything. So you're brainwashable and you just do what they tell you?
When I was in there, it was the program where I was at. We were in it was a warehouse with no windows, so nobody could see what was going on there. And you slept at night in the house of somebody who had been there long enough that they had gained the privilege, right? Mm-hmm. So your nights, you're put in a room, the door is locked with a key from the outside, alarms on the door, the windows are locked with a key. There's no you are literally in prison. There's nothing in the room, nothing but a mattress, right? And the next morning, it's called carrying you by the belt loop. This is so crazy. They jam their hand down the back of your pants, pull your pants upwards, dig their knuckles into your lower spine, and drive you from the car into the building. So you are physically controlled at all times. Okay. You're in the building. We sang a song about it, 9 to 9. You're in the building from 9 in the morning to 9 at night. But on Fridays, you're there until 1 or 2 in the morning. So 9 in the morning till, say, 2 in the morning. And again, this is how the brainwashing happens, right? So you're in a warehouse, 12, 15 hours a day, not getting very much food, not getting very much water, not getting very much sleep. Oh, yes. Okay. So all that. In the building, it is this entirely regimented protocol of how you're going to sit. You are physically forced to sit like this with your spine not touching the back of the seat. And what you have to do all day is sit in these groups. This is that group therapy thing. And what happens in group therapy is you have to tell on yourself. You have to either tell things that you did that were bad, or if you didn't do anything bad, really, like me, you have to come up with something to say that you did bad, to convince the other people that you believe, oh yeah, I believe I need this. Because if you don't, you're going to get the abuse from the peers. So in my program, I hope this isn't just too crazy, too overwhelming, but in my program, the fundamental piece was attack therapy. Attack therapy was other kids accusing you of something and getting up in your face to scream, like this close to your face, scream in your face. And that was spit therapy. So they would scream in your face, calling you every name in the book and accusing you of all kinds of everything. And if you had confessed to something that you were ashamed of, something that you had done, as a child or whatever, they're going to turn right around and use it against you and call you every name you could think of. And then they sit down and the whole entire group, this is hundreds of kids who you spend 12, 15 hours a day with, your entire world, they start throwing their hands up, and there's this thing called motivating, and you've got your hands up in the air, you're bashing your head around, you're bashing your arms around to try to get called on. You want to get called on to be the next one to stand up and do spit therapy. So if I don't quickly come up with some reason that I think I'm a drug addict and I belong in this place, I'm going to have my peers every day, hours a day, continuing to attack me. And that's just like the verbal attacks. That doesn't include the physical and the sexual, and just, that was a lot.
So when the child finally does, if they make it through, because I can't imagine all children getting out of there without committing suicide.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the ones who do make it out, I can imagine that there are not lawsuits from parents when the children do finally make it out and tell their parents what happened. Do they make them sign a waiver that says you can't sue us?
Mm. So this is what happened again with my program. There were a handful of lawsuits, but by and large, at least for me, I was so brainwashed. I was in that place for 16 months. I went in there a month after I turned 14. So I was a little kid, right? I was like basically a 13-year-old, right? So from the age of like 13 to 15, I was in there day after day after day. At some point, there's a mental break, and it's Stockholm syndrome. You fall in love with your abuser. So by the end, I was like, I love this place. Don't take me out. I don't want to go. I want to stay in the warehouse with my gray skin and my beady eyes, my little rat face look, right? So I didn't want to get out. So when I got out, I'm not going to sue straight. I have a newspaper article, the actual old article, local paper. They interviewed me and my mother as this is a great story of a child drug addict who like got straight, right? I totally lied to the reporter and believed what I was saying. I told stories about how, I used to be in the bathroom.
Well, they made you believe that you were this out of control drug addict that was just, just so long, just so far gone that, yeah.
Yes. Because if you didn't believe it, and the weird thing was, there was like this psychic energy, like we could read each other. And if somebody didn't really believe it, you could tell. And they just kept getting stood up and spit on it, stood up and spit on it, stood up. You didn't make any progress. You didn't move any closer to moving along till you got a few more privileges. Mm-mm. So when we got out, we didn't want to sue. We wanted to get back in there.
Oh my goodness. So when the parents did come, you gained privileges and you were able to, I guess, you said that they were supervised visits. When they were supervised, was it with someone from the facility, I assume, that was present with the child and their parents?
Yep. So it took me 10 months to earn the right to speak to my mother for 90 seconds. And that was
even with your brainwashing, you still had to have a supervisor there, even with your brainwashing, knowing that you weren't going to reveal anything.
Correct. And the only thing I was allowed to say, there was a script. I was allowed to relate one incident from my past, which meant confessing to something either I had done or I pretended to have done. So it had to be a druggy incident to convince my mother I was doing all this stuff on the low and you didn't know about it. So I'm in the right place, right? And then I had to listen to anything she wanted to say. My mother happens to be a narcissist. So what she wanted to say was to heap on more reasons why I'm the evil one, right? And then I could say, I love you. And then somebody jammed their hand on the back of my pants and steered me back to the other room.
And that's what really scares me so much, Cyndy. And that's why I really wanted you to come on here, because parents are also, and guardians and grandparents and people who are raising children, they're also in the middle of a mental health crisis. So they can't really help the child because they need help themselves. So if the child needs attention and they're acting out in school or whatever, then these parents are looking for somewhere or looking for the help. So they're ready to just believe anything. Yeah. And that's why I wanted you to come on here and tell them what you're really getting. You can't buy the hype that these counselors are selling you. They're getting paid from these prisons or whatever the heck you want to call these places. They're getting a lot of money for you to send your child there. So it's on you to do your homework, pay a visit to the place, whatever you need to do to find out, look at this show, listen to this testimonial from this beautiful young lady who was in one of those facilities. This is very important because if you know you can help, then at least do your homework and find out where you're sending your child. That's very important. Wouldn't you say so, Cyndy?
Absolutely. And that can be hard because there's a lot of money behind the marketing, right? Yes. And then parents and even kids, when they do get out, they'll write these glowing reviews the same way I spoke to the newspaper. So what one can do is read the reviews, read the negative reviews. Trust, right. At least put some credit to the, don't just write off the negative reviews, especially if the negative reviews keep saying the same thing. There's something that smells funny. Right. And maybe if it's possible if whoever wrote the negative review, if it's possible, if you can, click that name and they have a social media profile, like if there's a way to do a quick reach out, like any truth you can tell me about this place, that can be a route. You got to kind of be like Encyclopedia Brown and really do the research, but don't necessarily believe the hype.
And also, I would say, before you sign that contract to release your child to their care, because they are a minor, read the fine print. I will bet you money, because Cyndy, you were a child. You didn't read. Your guardian did, your mom. I bet she didn't read that fine print, which says, in the case of whatever, then we are exempt, or, we don't have liability for whatever. I know that they have attorneys because they're making tons of money, with these children coming here. So I know that they have that contract ironclad. You can't sue. So you've got to do your homework up front. Got to do that. And Cyndy, I wanted to just, I know we're packing a lot into this conversation, but I wanted to get your thoughts and your views on something. I don't want to push my beliefs off onto anyone. So I'm going to put that disclaimer out there. Viewers, this does not reflect my views. But the views of people, because it seems like, there's a lot of attention around abortion rights. So it doesn't matter what my views are on abortion rights, because I've actually heard a lot of people, a lot of really extremist religious groups say, I don't believe in abortion, but I also don't believe in the federal government telling a woman what to do with her body. I mean, it may be incest, it may be rape, it may be, lots of different things. The mother's life may be at risk, but there's no disclaimers. It's just, black and white. My comment to that is, and like I said, regardless of my views, my comment is, to me, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, which is the same thing. You're going to force a woman to have a child that's not wanted. So now you're going to deal with abuse, neglect, maybe throwing the child off into the foster care system that is just as jacked up as what we're talking about here with these behavior modification programs. I don't understand that. Can you help me understand, why is it so important for, if a woman gets pregnant, because we know accidents happen, rape happens, incest happens, things happen. Why is it so important to allow that child to come into the world, a toxic world, a world of neglect, a world of potential abuse, shaken baby syndrome, maybe death for the child? Why would you want to put them in that bad situation instead of letting the mother decide, is this child going to come into a healthy environment, or is this child potentially going to be harmed, neglected, or perhaps even something more violent and destructive?
And what's even more confusing then is when, from my point of view, I taught in schools and high schools for a long time. And what happens then to the kids who are coming to school without having had their needs met at home are the kids who are coming to school with need. The kids who are coming to school with need are quite often the ones who are acting out in some kind of way that is disruptive to learning. And they end up, now we're talking about the school to prison pipeline. You're bad, so you're going to get sent to the dean. You got sent to the dean 30 times this year, you're going to juvenile lockup. You're now in juvenile lockup. It's a hard road to now turn around your behavior and your norms to become someone who is just self-sufficient, surviving, doesn't need to resort to ways to make money that are not legal. So it's this whole continuum. It kind of starts at the beginning and then it keeps going.
Yeah.
I think it's the rare, I think it's pretty rare, the kid who is born into a home that is not savory, where the kid is not necessarily something wanted, who is able to somehow turn it around and do a whole lot of positive. Like it takes a lot of good breadcrumbs along that trail. Somebody's got to be really lucky to get all these things to enable them to go on to live a productive life if they're born into a negative environment. I will stop preaching.
Well, and it's not preaching, it's the facts, because even some children, I was born in a two-parent household, upper middle class. It was 5 of us, 5 children. I had 4 siblings, very dysfunctional.
Mm.
And both my parents wanted children. They wanted all of us.
Yeah.
But it was still a lot of dysfunction. So all I'm saying is there are a lot of families who want their children and there's still problems.
Yeah.
So with a situation where the parent doesn't want the child, but you're going to force the person to have the child, you're just putting more potential mass shooters when they grow up. You're putting more of them into society. So regardless of what my views are, that is something that you have to consider when that I guess topic is being debated. It's something that you really have to look at. So and the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you are such a busy young lady and I'm so proud of you. I just want to make sure I say that on the record for everyone who's watching to hear. Watching that show, and I cried for those children, and it was hard to get through that. It was really hard. So I'm going to try to turn this into something positive, and I want you to talk about your advocacy work. What are you doing? Because you're just everywhere, and I'm so proud of you.
I started out in the schools. That was great when I was in a certain part of the country where kids' needs were prioritized. So that was great. Then I moved to another part of the country where the focus is not so much on kids' needs. And I found it very hard to keep fighting this. It was like I was fighting an uphill battle with an ocean coming at me. So I pivoted and I became a teen life coach. So that's my business now. I've trained and certified evidence-based strategies, psychology-based, and also there's a coaching approach that is very much entirely focused on the kid's own perspective, what the kid wants to be different about their life, and figuring out what tools the kid has at their disposal or are interested in developing to get them to this thing that they want. So it doesn't matter what I might think, doesn't matter what school thinks, Instagram, doesn't matter what anybody thinks except for that kid, and therefore it works. Therefore it works. Kids are motivated because it's helping them get to where they want to be. So that's my coaching work. That's phenomenal. I also write books that are very honest about my experience, which is all kinds of just struggle. And I think it's a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't talk about. So when kids read it, who might be experiencing this stuff that nobody's talking about it, it can make them feel like, it's not just me. I'm not crazy. This happens. And so I hear from kids all the time, just on social media. Kids reach out to me, and I think it's just sort of like, it's like that picture of the hand of God, not that I'm God. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying
I know
that feeling, that feeling of, I'm actually connecting. There is somebody somewhere who cares. That's what I'm saying. And that's my driving force in life. When I was a kid and I had nobody, I had no money, I had no family, nobody liked me. Kids didn't like me. Nobody liked me. I had books and I had teachers who saw something in me. That was my railroad out. And no matter how much trouble I got in trouble with the law. I had all kinds of bad relationships, like stealing to live, just all this stuff, all the stupid stuff. I got no shame. This is what I did. I did it to survive. I did it to feel good, whatever. Now I'm on the other side. I'm very successful, but it was the early days, access to books for free in the library that were interesting to me, and teachers who saw something in me and said it out loud. That's it. That was it. That was the key for me.
Well, they say that your pain is ultimately your power.
Mm-hmm.
and you found your purpose in your pain.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I absolutely love that about you, because that's not easy, because a lot of times, like I described about, my childhood, I mean, my parents wanted a family, and my parents were married for 58 years before my father passed away, but there was a lot of dysfunction. And I didn't feel like anybody liked me. I had very low self-esteem. I got teased by my aunts, my grandmother. It was, I mean, so there are a lot of children out there who, and they're already dealing with this stuff. And then we have this mental health thing with COVID and the lockdowns and not being around their little friends. And so children are dealing with a lot. And then a lot of adults, they shrug it off. Well, they're just a child. They don't know anything. Well, these are formative years. This is the time when they really need that attention. They need the validation, the appreciation, the respect.
Yeah.
And I know that your organization, what you're doing, does all of that.
Yes, it does. And there's more of us. Where I trained, Youth Coaching Institute, phenomenal. It's a social justice initiative training people who want to support kids by meeting them where they're at and using evidence-based strategies to help the kid get to where they want to go. If you Google Youth Coaching Institute, you can find the roster. There's so many of us. Phenomenal work.
What is the name of your website, your organization?
Mine is The Teen Life Coach. That's my coaching business. Yeah.
The Teen Life Coach. And how many books have you written?
I've got 2 out right now, and I've got a 3rd one out on submission right now. So we'll see. We got it with 25 editors. We'll see who wants it.
And which 2 are the newer ones?
The 2 that I've got out right now, one is called Dead Inside, and that one is about my experience in Straight Incorporated. So that is written first person present tense. So the reader is, in my mind, as a 13-year-old trying weed for the first time and trying to survive, right? And then going to getting beat for the last time, taken off. Best month of my childhood I spent in a homeless shelter in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Best month of my childhood. Actually, this is a map of Bridgeport, and we got Janice's house right here on the map. Like, this is my heart, right? They only had a bed for me for a month. Had to go somewhere. There was a big media press about Straight Incorporated. Nancy Reagan, Princess Di visited, so it was all over the news. Boom, I'm in there. So that book takes the reader along through the process into the place and through the process of being brainwashed and having that psychic break. And then you got to read it and find out. So that's the first book, Dead Inside. The second one is We Can't Be Friends. And that's when you talked about, well, what happens when kids get out of that place? How do they? That book, We Can't Be Friends, is about when I got out of there and tried to reintegrate to society and the stuff that I did to try to feel like I had a place among humans. So it's not cute, it's not pretty, but it's real. It's the stuff that a lot of kids are experiencing and a lot of kids are doing to try to find human connection, try to find self-esteem.
So we can find your books on your website or Amazon, correct?
Yep.
Okay. That's wonderful. And so, Cyndy, I just want to ask you, if you had to give advice right now to parents, grandparents, guardians, whoever is raising a child, whether it's a male child, female child, it doesn't matter. What advice would you give that individual to help them in whatever challenges they're dealing with their children they're raising?
The vitamin-sized solution is don't tell, ask. So instead of, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you're no good at this, ask the kid. I see this is happening. Can you tell me about it? How's it going? Your grades are down. You need to bring up your grades. Who's gonna respond to that? Who's gonna pick up the grades with that attitude? Nobody. Your grades are down. I'm thinking about that. I'm trying to understand what's going on. Is it a school thing? Is it a social thing? What do you need? Somebody asks you that, they're coming at you with love and acceptance and curiosity. So the kid might be willing to hash it out. So instead of telling, asking with curiosity, expressing whatever you say is cool. I just want to understand you. And that's the big fix. Because 99% of the time, if somebody is doing something that's unsavory, that's not ideal, they're looking for something. And usually what they're looking for, no matter how they're trying to get it, whether it's drugs or food or shoplifting or whatever it is that somebody's doing, usually what's at the root of it is a craving for human connection. Tell them you want to listen, tell them you want to understand, they get that human connection. I'm not going to say the problem goes away like that, but you're going to start to see a shift in the kid.
I love that. I love that. And you're absolutely correct. I'm actually mentoring a young girl. She's a senior. And I don't know what she's used to, but I just know how I interact with her. And she told me, at first she didn't want to tell me, but she told me that she had failed or gotten a bad grade in one of her classes. And she was just really upset about it. And I could have said, I'm not her parent, I'm her coach. But I could have said, well, what'd you get the bad grade for? You know, you shouldn't be getting better. But instead of that, I said, so what do you think caused it? What do you think happened? And it just was something very simple.
Yes.
She didn't prioritize her time.
Yep.
And her time, it crept up on her and she didn't turn it in time.
Yep.
Just that simple. Whereas if a parent or guardian or anybody had just went in on her and criticized her and just jumped all over her for being so terrible and making her feel like she was the worst person in the world, she could have got 4 more bad grades.
Yes, she could. Yep.
So I think listening is critical. And like you said, listening to understand. Well, you know, that's the key for any relationship, not just a child.
Yep.
So, you know, Cyndy, you have been a wealth of knowledge. You are wonderful. You're brilliant. You're beautiful inside and out. And I just thank you so much for coming on here, helping people. Thank you for helping the children in our nation, because we really need you. We need you cloned a million.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I'm so honored to be here and to have an opportunity to join you in your platform. I'm so grateful.
Well, I'm very grateful too. And we're gonna look for those books. And are you on social media? Let's put up your social media handle.
Yeah, I'm on everything. I'm on Instagram, CD Etler on Instagram, TikTok at Cyndy Etler TikTok. Instagram is at Cyndy Etler. TikTok is at Cyndy Etler. Facebook, Cyndy Etler. I'm all over on Facebook. My author website is cyndyetler.com. It's my name, Cyndy, Cyndy Etler, Etler. Easy to find.
Absolutely. Excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Just thank you. Thank you for your incredible work and your incredible spirit. And just keep fighting the good fight, because we need you so much. We really need you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And we thank you also, our viewers, for joining us for this very empowering episode. And we're going to sign off for now, and let's keep growing. We'll see you the same time next week. Good night, everyone.